Alrighty. And we're live.
Sweet.
Make sure my screen is showing up over here. Yeah, there we go.
We need that live DJ.
I know. Gonna have one soon.
That'd be cool. And Toro, man,
Okay.
Mr. Consistent.
Who's Mr. Consistent?
And Toro, man, I don't think he's missed a single stream yet.
Oh yeah, and Taro Man's a legend. Him
Legend.
and that guy who wants us to promote the Golly network.
He doesn't miss. The bots don't miss either.
Yeah. All right, guys, we're just gonna wait for a couple more people to get on the stream. Let it get moving a little bit before we drop the bombshell that the MtGox wallet they transferred to is not ours.
Sid. Yeah, ours. I promise it's not mine.
I can't promise, but it's probably not mine either.
I swear this is like the 10th time throughout this whole like little chop cycle I've heard about MtGox transferring a large amount of money. I feel like I just have endless amounts of liquidity.
Yeah, we got a lot of money up there on MtGox. I think they're just calling it MtGox instead of something like Baby Anthill Gox is also just makes it sound scarier.
Yeah. Well, you know, MtGox obviously is tied to like the OG Bitcoin days, collapses, and all that sort of stuff. Do you know anything about real Bitcoin history about MtGox?
I know a bit about it. Not an expert in it. I'm not gonna lie.
What'd you say?
I said I know a bit about it, but I'm not an expert.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, I wasn't in cryptocurrency obviously when that's like early days when all that scandal stuff was going up down. But I've watched my fair share of Bitcoin documentaries to know a bit about it. So
Awesome. So apparently someone at MtGox is probably buying a pizza because they transferred 12,000 Bitcoin. The last time anybody transferred 12,000 Bitcoin to someone else, I think it was for a pizza.
that legendary peach story.
Can you imagine that? Pretty
Can't,
cool
dude.
though, being that guy.
Oh, that guy. It's insane.
Who got over here?
Oh, we got all the OGs. Toro
Got some
Man,
good
Sid,
people.
Easy, Pizza Turtle, all the consistent guys.
Easy, everybody.
Yep.
I know what they gotta send back though. I'm trying to find out how much is left on MtGox.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know, dude. I've been hearing for so long that MtGox is making these big transfers and is going to dump, and nothing really happens. So I'm not too worried about it. That news doesn't affect me at all. What was the other piece of news that you wanted to talk about?
What's Mother's Day? Bitcoin ETFs and Ethereum ETFs.
Oh, low volume.
Very low volume.
What that article said? What the lowest amount of volume since February? Is that right? Early February.
Let's take a look over here, and I'll tell you. Looking for a good MtGox tracker. So looking over at the Bitcoin ETFs, US spot Bitcoin ETFs see lowest daily trading volume since early February.
You want to do you want to share my screen? I want to show you something real quick. It's pretty funny.
Yeah. There's no nudity this time, though, right?
Promise, not this time. This time we're clean. We clean stream.
Okay. Let's go ahead and share that.
So it's funny because when you sent me that article, I was like, okay, early February. Why is that important? And I remember like the very end of January, early February, that was when we got a massive pump. And I do remember last time I heard about like the whole low ETF volumes, like when people saying ETFs were dead and all that sort of stuff. This is beginning of February on the chart right here. So when the last time when people were saying the ETFs had no volume and like ETFs were dead, market was still a little choppy too at this point, not as choppy obviously, but this is that point right here on the chart and led to a massive pump. So again, man, I swear I say this every stream, but it's like I I don't trade fundamental news, or at least I trade it with a massive grain of salt. And actually, what I think plays out more often than not is the opposite of what you think would happen to the like you'll hear a lot of fear and stuff like like scary stories like the Mount Gox transfers, the low ETF volumes, the recession's coming. You'll hear about all that news before we pump. Like it's inherently happens every single time. If there's any pattern I know that's consistent in cryptocurrency, it's that one right there. So it's pretty funny because right when you sent that to me, I'm like, early February. That was I remember hearing about that, and that was like right before stuff took off. We topped out, had that big pump up to like whatever, mid early March, whenever it was. We obviously topped out and started consolidating, but that stuff doesn't phase me. Like I think, again, I'm a technical trader, so it's like I hear that stuff and it literally almost makes me more bullish. I'm wondering, what I'm curious about is the Bitcoin sentiment. Yeah, Bitcoin fear and greed index. Let's see where this is at still, because it was an extreme fear a couple days ago, and I'm sure it's moved up a little bit. But like this one. Yeah, so we're actually even more fearful than we were yesterday, which is interesting. So we're still in a market of extreme fear, and you know, like we've gotten more fearful from this move to this move, which is interesting in a general market sense. So yeah, I don't know how do you interpret like fundamental news, like big macro news, like the Mount Gox stuff or low ETF volumes? How do you interpret that, or how does that affect your trading?
Um, I held off on buying 1,000 Bitcoin today, because of the news. It definitely affected that.
Uh-huh.
Um, I look at it not as a news event. I look at it more as a market event because it does affect the market, these things. You're talking about volume, you're talking about sells or buys, and you have inflows and outflows. So it's more of a market thing than it is for me a news thing. A news thing would be, um, I don't know, monkeypox. Monkeypox is a news event. So I
Yep.
sort of characterize this a little bit differently. So then the question is, how do we interpret these things? What's actually going on, and how does it affect it? Because looking at like Ethereum ETFs, they had a record 20.3 million in outflows, which is an outflow streak of 3 days now. There, 80% of them are in profit, even though we haven't recovered from the crash in early August. It sort of feels like more of a consolidation situation going on. Perhaps maybe that's what's happening here. I'm going to switch over my audio. This is a little bit better.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, sounds a lot better.
Okay. Yeah, I took the sock out of my mouth, so apparently it's going to try to stream with a ball gag, but it's not really as helpful as I thought it would be. But for me, it's like these are more market events than they are news events. But some people treat them like a news event, and that accentuates and sort of makes everything bigger than the actual market event. So I want to take a look at an interesting article here about Mt. Gox. I'm going to share my screen. It's from about a month ago, but it's still very relevant to what we're dealing with today. Let me go and share this real quickly. Share this. Don't need audio. And I'm going to go ahead and change the layout here real quick. Do you see my screen?
Yep.
There we go. So let's try to separate, I think is a great question that you asked. You know, you're like, is it a market or is it a news event? How do you trade it? Like, let's dig into the facts and try to see, is this a market event or is this a news event? And how much is extra that's being put into to scare us more than what happened? So a little history on Mt. Gox. 10.5 years ago, it filed for bankruptcy, had a bunch of Bitcoin in its holdings, and now they're finally going to start sending them out to people. About $9 billion, 142,000 Bitcoin is going to be dispersed. So looking at this, oh my God, I got the wrong, there's the wrong article over here. I had a great article. There's a really good article I had, and I don't know where it is. Shoot. Hold on one second. Let me find this article. It was on Reddit. Someone had posted a good article about this, like a really, maybe this is it. Hang on one second. And it had some great numbers on exactly the impact that it's going to have. I'll share this tab over here. Let's see. No, I have the wrong, I'm not finding the right article over here. But basically, it was talking about how, let's see, MtGox, it's talking about how the daily volume that we have of inflows and outflows of ETFs is already larger than the maximum amount really that would happen. And that it's really not so big.
Yeah.
Here, let's see if this is the article. My studio helper did not get me the right article. Anyways, I don't think that it would be that much, because if we look like Mt. Gox today, let's just go over to the facts here on Mt. Gox. Mt. Gox transferred what, $700 million worth?
Yep.
Okay, so if we go to Bitcoin ETF tracker, let's take a look at how much comes in and out of ETFs every day. You know, and then it will sort of put into perspective that we have a lot of money that goes in and out already. So let's see if this would be a good one here. There's $216 million just in Grayscale alone, $700 million in BlackRock.
Yep.
You got to think that we have an insane amount of volume coming in and out of these. The top three alone have, or top four alone have over $1 billion going back and forth, right?
Yep.
And we're talking about $700 million that's hitting a wallet. We don't even know when it's all going to sell. I doubt everybody's just going to dump their Bitcoin right away. I mean, when you think about it, the people in Mt. Gox are early Bitcoin holders, right?
Yeah, I mean, most of them, you'd assume. I mean, not a lot of new traders or investors are using Mt. Gox. Those are, yeah, people. You know, that's an exchange that's been It's like the OG exchange, of Bitcoin, like Silk Road days exchange. So I think the reason it scares people when they hear like Mount Gox and transferring money is like Mount Gox was a large part of like one of the biggest scandals in crypto history and biggest collapses, right? That being with like the Silk Road and Mount Gox and whatnot. But yeah, like you're right. So I looked up the numbers just because I wanted to check because I was actually curious when you brought that up. But Bitcoin sees in a 24-hour trading period on average about 30 plus $billion worth of trading volume. So, of course, $700 million is a lot of money to any market, but it's not like it's not going to change the chart much. Like if that news wasn't released and people weren't trading based off it or selling their bags because they were scared like Mount Gox was going to crash the chart, it would be just, a regular day of inflows. So, yeah, I think it's to me, like, I don't know, I see those types of news events come out, especially in times like this. And it's almost like it feels like it's meant to scare people. And we talked last time about how, I put a big emphasis on the fact that institutions have been buying through this last 2-3 month cycle where we've been really consolidating and liquidating, tons of people out of their positions, whether it's meme coins, altcoins, Bitcoin, right? People have been dumping their positions out of fear, and institutions have been buying it up. And it almost feels like these types of news events are like programmed intentionally to help these institutions fill their liquidity. Because, like I said, institutions can't just come in and press a buy order for $5 billion worth of Bitcoin, right, in one click. Like they're not derivatives traders; they're trading with so much volume. They need to find ways to get liquidity to fill their positions. And so I almost feel like these are like artificial ways, like plants to scare people out of the market and throw their bags into institutions' hands. So interesting though, for sure.
Yeah, I'm trying to find a good chart that shows the inflows and outflows daily of these ETFs because there's a higher amount of money going in and out of the markets on a day-to-day basis than there is even this whole big quote unquote movement of Mt. Gox Bitcoin.
Yep. Yep.
Let's see if I can find a good chart. I don't know why I can't find any good charts right now for some reason. You have a good chart maybe for the Bitcoin ETFs?
No, like in terms of like something that tracks volume, like daily inflow outflows.
Yeah.
No, I've never really charted that. I don't. There's probably not a chart for that. I'm sure it's probably like a bar chart or something, um, that will show it. Some sort of like line chart data is what I would assume would probably be best to chart that.
That's what I'm looking for. I think that'd be really helpful. But either way, the volume that you have going on these things is a lot higher than even the amount of money that's been transferred through.
Oh, way more, way more. Well, like I said, like yesterday there was $31 billion worth of trading volume on Bitcoin alone. So, 700 million, I'm not the best at math, but that's not a large percentage. That's under 10%, obviously. So, um, it's not going to sway the chart. Even if they were to like completely dump 700 million on the chart, we'd see it, a little bit. Price would drop 0.5%, but it's not going to have some insane impact on the chart. So, um, yeah, I don't know. I just feel like those news events are just they're plants. I think they go the opposite way of what people think they're gonna go. And I just showed you where the last time where, the Bitcoin ETFs were at all-time lows, quote unquote, in terms of trading volume was the beginning of the pump to the top out in March. It's like it's the same thing as the Forex collapse being the start of the bull run. Like not enough people talk about that. Like I don't know. It's just very indicative of how fundamental news works in terms of like the macro perspective of charts, in my opinion. So
Yeah, no, 100%. Like, for example, if we look at, you have 55 grayscales at $12 million in daily inflows. Like, I think Bitcoin can honestly sustain these types of movements without much of a difference. This here. So you got daily net inflow 200. Like we had days that were beginning of August. That was a pretty bad one, but we had days like just a little while ago. Yeah, daily net inflow $81 million. Like I think that the market can sustain these types of daily inflows and daily outflows,
Yep.
in my opinion.
Yep. No,
With
totally.
you said $1 billion traded daily.
31 billion supposedly. Well, that's from my quick Google search, but that was like from yesterday. There was $31 billion in volume that was traded total in Bitcoin.
Yeah, I think the markets can sustain it pretty easily.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So what that one has at around closer to about 20 billion, it looks like a day. 17 billion net inflow, total net cumulative. Oh no, so that's cumulative. So it's adding each time. Hold on. Oh, that's just in the ETFs though. That's just ETF volume.
What is just the ETF volume?
So you're showing like the net inflow. So shows about what like anywhere from like 30 to 200 million dollars in daily net inflow volume. That's ETF volume. So that's money being traded through ETFs, but total volume traded on cryptocurrency through derivatives trading, spot market, ETFs, right, etc. People inflow and outflows of Bitcoin, regardless of the exchange or method, is in like tens of billions a day. So yeah, something to think about. Also, we had a question. Did you look into if ETFs can short Bitcoin? Did you look into if ETFs can short Bitcoin through puts? Yeah, you can. You can buy short ETF positions. I know for sure you can. I don't. The thing is like the people buying ETF positions, those are like long-term investors, right? They're not like derivatives traders. Like derivatives traders are the ones who are like really shorting the market typically. Like people who go to buy ETFs aren't necessarily like going in to buy short ETFs, in my opinion. At least the people I know aren't. Like there's not a lot of boomers that are going like, oh, I'm gonna buy an ETF to short the market. They're buying long-term assets to hold, right? So I think there's probably very little volume or people who use ETFs to short the market, and there's probably not a ton of places where you can buy short ETFs, but you definitely can, right? Like you can buy short ETFs on any market, I believe. So we had another one too, I think. Not one person can destroy Bitcoin's chart. The option over the years. Yeah, totally. And I agree with that. Like that's the power of a super liquid and large volume market like Bitcoin is it's not like a meme coin or a low cap shit coin where like it takes one person to, you know, sell their entire bag and then all of a sudden it ruins the chart, right? You can't do that with Bitcoin. There's not a single institution that could collapse Bitcoin by themselves, you know? And that's also the same thing with the stock market, same thing with any large market, like Forex market included. Like there's no one institution that can then crash the market. So, but I do think that a lot of times institutions trade together. They trade, whether it's coordinated or not, they tend to buy in the same spots and push price the same directions and sell at the same time. And again, all institutions from JP Morgan to BlackRock to Australia's biggest institutional fund, like all, I can go down the list. I think there was like a list of 10 that I showed on my Twitter. All of them have not just held in this 2 to 3 month range, but they've also accumulated more. And so what that tells you is that, you know, they're accumulating more Bitcoin, spot holding Bitcoin, not shorting, but like spot holding Bitcoin, expecting price to go up in the long term. So I think it's pretty clear.
People are still accumulating. Long-term holders are still accumulating Bitcoin, but
Totally.
I just don't think that the volume that Mt. Gox is pushing is going to have such a large impact that people really think it's going to have.
Yep. I agree.
It's over exaggerated because the market already handles this large amount of inflows and outflows that are happening, and I don't really think that it's going to really do as much as they think it's going to do. What's interesting here, though, is that you see Ethereum for, enough about Bitcoin for the moment, but and Mt. Gox. Mt. Gox, I think people get a little bit scared when they say they're selling, but I don't think it's going to have as much of a difference. We're seeing a lot less open interest on Ethereum. Open interest means long and shorts that people are putting in on the market. Ethereum, I'll give you the exact number. Their open interest is at $10.69 billion. On May 28th, it was at $17 billion. So when you see less long and shorts, it sort of feels like a lot of a crabbing sideways consolidation moment going on, where the market is having less, thinking there's going to be less large movements, a little less bullish, honestly, but also a little less bearish because you have less short positions. It just feels like a nothing burger is happening right now. It's like everybody's just waiting for something to tell them it's time to go buy or it's time to go sell, because people aren't dumping, but people are also not really buying. It's just this stagnation, this crabbing.
No, totally. And the thing is yeah, when open interest decreases, you're going to see that consolidation. A lot of times too, right? So what we wouldn't want to see, because open interest is part of like delta statistics that I track on a daily basis. What we wouldn't want to see is like a bear flag. So like it consolidating and kind of like slightly moving up, right? Trying to find liquidity to the upside and open interest decreasing, because that means the market isn't sustainable to the upside, right? Because they're, as price is slowly creeping up, trying to find liquidity, no one's opening, like people are less and less opening up positions and volumes falling. So what you would, if the market was crabbing in an upward channel, right? Like it would be forming a bear flag, which would mean it's going to have to crash to find volume and liquidity again, right? Versus right now we're forming a bear flag because we had tons of open interest increase and a ton of euphoria up into March, where people are opening positions, volumes increasing, and then we see that volume kind of die off, and prices now dropping, right? Trying to find that volume and liquidity to the downside. And if it doesn't find it, it's going to move up, right? The market's going to find that liquidity to the upside. And I've already talked about where the liquidity is sitting. Like it's all sitting up at 70K plus. There is billions, like $10+ billion of liquidity sitting at the top of those highs. And if I'm an institution and I just bought, billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin through this chop, I know in my head, if I can push price to those highs, we're going to have a massive short squeeze to the upside, and not just fill positions, but now those people who bought, between 50 to 65K are now massively in the green from squeezing people out, right? And taking people's liquidity to the upside. So that's the pattern I'm predicting. That's the pattern I see from a macro standpoint.
Yeah, I agree. I really don't see it being as much of an issue as people think it is. But it's interesting to see what's been going on in the market and how we have all these large sort of FUD events that are occurring, like Mt. Gox, and you also have lower ETFs. Like people are looking at Ethereum ETFs as really not being as successful as they thought that it was going to be. But I see it as people just keep accumulating. Long-term Bitcoin holders are still accumulating. The ETFs are still accumulating everything. That's taking supply off the market. Even if it's not making such a big impact, it's slowly bringing in a lot. It's slowly making a pretty big change in the actual supply that we have and bringing a lot of bigger markets into it. I just don't think it happens overnight that these things affect stuff. But then, as it creeps up, the amount of supply that the ETFs have, as it um, moves up that number, and more retail investors are coming in, retail, more TradFi type, it's going to have a pretty big impact this bull run. And people say, like, is this the bull run? When has it started? one theory that I heard that was really interesting was that the bull run sort of got a false flag that it had started when the Bitcoin ETFs made a pop on the Bitcoin price and sent it to almost an all-time high. What did we get? Did we get our all-time high before? I don't think we got our all-time high. We got almost there. But
for
we
March.
yeah,
Yeah, it was an all-time high, but by barely. I think,
scraped
yeah,
it like by a couple of dollars, like literally.
yeah, I think previous all-time high was like 69K. We touched like 74, I think. Yeah, 69 was last cycle's top. 69 like 800 or something, like a front run of 70.
Yes, it sort of did like a false flag before the traditional 4-year cycle would normally have had it happen. And that brought a lot of excitement. And then we saw it die down because Bitcoin's natural cycles have not really gotten there in a healthy way. Hasn't been enough consolidation. There hadn't been enough um, of anything that normally triggers it.
Yeah.
And after it hit its all-time high, we sort of had a mini false altcoin season. We saw meme coins pumping like crazy March, April, and then May, and then June it started to really decline, and July and August, kept declining. But that was because Bitcoin sort of lost a little bit of dominance, but that dominance that it had lost was not really a true bull run cycle.
Well, and that's what's funny though is Bitcoin didn't really lose any dominance. So if you look at the Bitcoin dominance chart, yes, because a lot of people, right, and this is one thing I've heard on my timeline a lot is that people say that meme coin when Pepe hit 6 billion, whatever it hit, and everything was kind of mooning around March. Yes, meme coins were performing well, but not at any point have they really outperformed Bitcoin on the macro scale. And if you look at the dominance chart, since the start of the bull run, we have not had a retracement on the dominance chart at a high term time frame level, like at all. It's literally been vertical up, which means we have not. I made a whole post about this. We have not had an altcoin season at all. So, and you anticipate one, right? Like in my opinion, you're going to have an altcoin season at some point throughout the cycle. I think we've been parabolic on the Bitcoin dominance chart to the upside since the bull run started. I think we're hitting high term time frame resistance very soon around that 60% level on the Bitcoin dominance chart. So what's exciting is those meme coin pumps that we saw, through March when Bitcoin was topping out. They still didn't outperform Bitcoin. That still wasn't the euphoric meme coin mania that we've seen in previous years. So I think that's very exciting because you expect to see much larger moves, much more volume when Bitcoin dominance starts to die, right? Or starts to at least retrace is what you'd want to see. But when Bitcoin dominance has retraced in the past, like when we've had those meme coin mania seasons, it falls fast and, not for a very extended amount of time. And that's what I warn people too. If you're in meme coins, those are the best ROI plays in the crypto coin market this bull cycle by a mile, in my opinion. But what you have to be careful of is that meme coin mania, that, quick, harsh retracement on the Bitcoin dominance chart. It hits hard and it hits very fast. So you got to be ready to start, taking advantage of those, meme coin plays that get really parabolic during that time period.
Yeah, it wasn't a large movement, but it just went down a little bit on the macro. It's been going up this whole year, but you have these dips, and when it hit that all-time high, then started to retrace just a little bit, a few percentage points. People, I think, took that, overreacted, sort of acted like meme coins are getting started, but we never really triggered the bull cycle. It
Yeah.
hasn't even begun.
Do you want
And
to share my screen after you're done talking to, by the way, whenever you finished?
yeah, let me share your screen. Hang on one second. Move this over. But yeah, it was sort of like a false flag bull market that we had occurring.
Yep. Yeah. So this, right? I actually made a post about this. I don't think I've shown this chart yet on one of our live streams, but this is so important. Like one of my most important tweets I've ever had to date, genuinely. So when you're talking about meme coin season, right? This was the start of our current bull cycle, right? So when Bitcoin started its leg up, right? This has been Bitcoin dominance, right? That when we topped out in March, so right here, mid-March, this was us topping out, right? This was the time where our meme coin bags were like really pumping, right? And you can see on Bitcoin dominance, like there's barely, I mean, there's like if you go down to lower time frames, you'll see like little periods of it. But this is what an altcoin season looked like, right? This is the time frame. Like if you look up last cycle's altcoin season, it'll give you these dates, right? This isn't like me just finding a big retracement on the chart and drawing a purple box around it. These are the dates that are coined as the altcoin season from last cycle. This is what it looks like, right? So compare this to this, right? Like we have not had this drop yet, this like aggressive meme coin mania where the meme everyone's just aping all their bags and meme coins and things are just going through the roof. We have not had that yet. And also, this lasted maybe, a month and a half total. Which is what I anticipate this next meme coin cycle to last too. I mean, they could still do well throughout Bitcoin's life in this bull cycle, but like the meme coin mania where it gets really volatile and parabolic and you get those opportunities for 100x's and all types of different plays. It lasts only a couple months. And so what I'm saying too is like it's important to track this stuff because as someone who's holding a meme coin, because we've seen so many people the last couple months just dump their meme coins, right? Just absolutely obliterate the meme coin market because I've heard people talking about meme coin season already happened and we're not getting a meme coin season more. No, we haven't, right? Like look at this previous cycle compared to here. Where's the meme coin cycle or the altcoin cycle, right? Has not happened yet. And so where I'm looking at now as a trader is like, okay, where could we see this bounce, right? In my opinion, right here is a very strong level. I don't know if I still have these levels marked out, but you have like a fib line right here, and then also this fixed range. So this is big confluence for me right at that 60% line. I could see this being a very key area to where like in my if I was to make a very bold early prediction, like a way too early prediction, I could see Bitcoin getting our breakout, right? So it breaks above 74K, squeezes out those shorts. So Bitcoin gets a massive influx of price and volume. And as we've seen in previous cycles, when Bitcoin breaks its all-time high, it triggers price discovery for the cryptocurrency market. And most people historically have dumped their bags into altcoins, right? The retail market wants to get into altcoins because everybody retail knows there's more opportunity in altcoins, right? So that's what I could see happening. Like we get this push up on the breakout of Bitcoin, and then as soon as we get that Bitcoin price discovery, altcoins, blow up, and we get that retracement on Bitcoin, that quick move to the downside, and that continuation of altcoin season. So that's my early prediction. We might have to clip that if that happens. So too early to tell though.
Yeah, so when I say like the false flag, I want to clarify a little bit, and I found that awesome article. We'll go over that afterwards about MtGox. Everybody knows about altcoin season. I mean, there's a million altcoin season trackers, right? Like this is not a secret or a well-kept one.
Yep.
And I think a lot of the pump that came from that March area was people anticipating
Totally.
that this is the up and very shortly this downward movement of the Bitcoin dominance chart was going to happen. And it didn't because Bitcoin had never really had that parabolic movement. It was a false flag from the Bitcoin ETFs and just the excitement coming back into crypto. People sort of, blew their load a little bit early on this. And then because it wasn't actually the time for the dominance to go down, Bitcoin had not made its real parabolic move, even though it hit an all-time high. Then all of a sudden you're in this situation where you realize like, oh, it's not alt season. Bitcoin dominance is still very high. And even the ETFs for Ethereum, maybe part of it is that dominance is not ready for it yet. It's set up and it's going to be really great when it does happen. But that dominance is not ready for Ethereum. That dominance is still there with Bitcoin, and it's very solid. And until Bitcoin breaks out, until it has that short squeeze of the 70 and 72,000 area, you are not ready for alt season. And that liquidity is not going to be there. The accumulation's happening in Bitcoin still. It's still consolidating, getting ready for that move. But when that move happens, don't let the fact that it wasn't there a month or two ago fake you out, because when it does happen, make sure you have that same conviction in the plays that you like, especially in the lower caps that return the insane numbers. And the reason why most of us are in crypto, make sure that you are ready the same way you were ready 2 months ago. Because if you go and you sold a bunch of stuff and you exited a lot of your positions because it didn't happen 2 months ago, it just wasn't ready. You want to make sure that you are ready for when it actually is going to happen in the upcoming months.
Totally.
Um,
Totally. I agree. And what's great about this chart, right, is another pattern you can see. Like you were saying, you want to anticipate when altcoin season's coming, and you can look at chart data to anticipate that. One pattern that I think is also important to note that I haven't heard a lot of people talk about is since the creation of Bitcoin, right, all the way back here, whenever the dominance chart started, right, the reason this chart is, I think, historically always almost going to trend downwards for the most part is because since Bitcoin started, the cryptocurrency ecosystem has become larger and larger, right? More coins have launched, more coins, especially nowadays with like the whole pump fund meme coin era than ever before, right? So because back in the day when cryptocurrency was very early on, you pretty much just had Bitcoin, and then Ethereum came along, and then you had things like utility tokens like XRP, Luna, whatever, right? And so each bull cycle, we're going to get more and more diverse with that cryptocurrency ecosystem. And so the Bitcoin dominance chart will historically relatively always kind of trend downward, unless something crazy happens, obviously. But at least in the relative short term macro, you're going to see a downward trending of the Bitcoin dominance because especially this cycle. Like again, you look at the era of what's going on this cycle with pump funds and all of these meme coins launching. It diversifies the cryptocurrency ecosystem in a good and bad way. Good being that, we need a lot of these coins, these utility tokens, to have cryptocurrency really become the future of finance the way we want it to be. Like Bitcoin is not perfect. It's not the best currency. It's not the best way to transfer money. There's different cryptocurrencies for different purposes, right? Bitcoin is the best store of value. It's the best replacement as digital gold. But it's not like you can't take Bitcoin and replace the entire financial system right now, right? You need a diverse set of cryptocurrencies to do that. So, anyways, the reason I say that is because this blue line right here, this was the highs from last bull cycle and Bitcoin dominance. We probably will not, like very, very, very low likely that we see a Bitcoin dominance breach above this high. So as we get closer and closer to this high, the odds that we're going to see that altcoin season retracement happen and altcoin season to really start capturing more volume becomes higher and higher and higher and higher, right? So important to track because we're getting close to 60% of, and actually probably 70% of that retracement as we move up, right? We get closer and closer to that retracement point, in my opinion. So important to track that for sure.
Yeah, I agree with your levels, and I also agree with your thoughts on how it's never going to hit that high of a level. Not only do we have more coins, but we actually have more chains than we had.
That too, 100%.
Like literally, there's more blockchains that exist than we had when Bitcoin initially came out. So it's always going to be creeping lower.
Totally.
But it still has to have that upwards movement where it retraces up before it can come back down. And
Yeah.
it hasn't really, and it's faking a lot of people out of this market. Just because you came early to the party doesn't mean the party's not going to happen. The party's at 9. You thought the invitation was for 6 p.m. That doesn't mean the party's not happening at 9. And if you decide to get back in your car and pay the valet and leave, you're going to miss the party. And that's an important thing for people to understand. And when that liquidity moves from Bitcoin and it starts to cascade down into Ethereum, then that effect that it's going to have on the Ethereum chain, because I'm sorry, there's Solana now, there's Ton, there's Tron. We've seen these plays happen all the time. None of those have ETFs. None of those have that retail backing, that money that's going to be coming in. When that money moves from that Bitcoin dominance over to Ethereum, over to those ETFs, that excitement comes in, I think that we're going to see an insane amount of liquidity return to Ethereum, an insane amount of volume return, and that volume is going to be magnified 100x, 1000x. Easy says the party is not starting at 9. uh, I personally, I didn't get the invitation, so I'm not exactly sure when it's starting and what time zone. But it's going to be magnified, that money that comes from Ethereum, from Bitcoin into Ethereum, for all the coins that are attached, like Bloodboy, like Bobo, Dodo, Pepe. All the coins that are on Ethereum are going to have this magnification of volume, and also this magnification of the value of Ethereum going up, which affects the liquidity pools, affects how much the tokens are going to be worth. And just because it's not happening right now doesn't mean you know when it's going to happen or not going to happen. And that's why it's a great buying opportunity, I think, for a lot of the coins, because people got faked out by this early fake bull run where they bought coins thinking that, oh, it's about to change the dominance and we should grab it now. This is when it's all about to fly. And it's not yet. So just understand that it's okay. It always has to have Bitcoin hit that certain level. Then it starts to cascade in. And then the Ethereum ETFs that people are really saying are not that much of an excitement or not doing that much, then those will amplify and give a multiplier to the volume on Ethereum. The Ethereum volume is then going to multiply and just send an insane amount of liquidity over to the meme coins. And if you're not in and you're not locked in and you don't have your positions, you are not going to have a chance, because it's just going to happen like literally almost overnight when that occurs.
No, then that's what I'm saying. It's like, especially for meme coins, the moves and the volume and the liquidity picks up so fast when that time comes. It's like you gotta be early to the party to really go to the party. Honestly, like once that bus leaves, you're gone. Like you're not catching that bus. It happens so quickly. So you don't want to be the retail traders that wait for the altcoin season to happen and then aping when everybody's euphoric and Blood Boy's up 20x and Pepe's up to 20 billion. Like you don't want to be that guy that waits for that quick move up to be like, oh wait, yeah, altcoin season is happening. Let me buy it back, because you're gonna buy the tail end of it, the top, right? If you want to make money in this space, this is one of the most important pieces of advice I can give anyone. You have to be early to the party. You have to anticipate moves. You have to buy the fear with a macro perspective, saying, yeah, okay, a lot of people are scared. They're selling their meme coin bags, but now I get it at a cheaper price. And I'm expecting this bounce to come, because from a macro analysis standpoint, everything still looks great, right? So that's the mindset you have to have, in my opinion, when you're approaching, investment opportunities like meme coins. And so, yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I like truly, from the bottom of my heart, believe like I know what's coming. Like I know this altcoin season is coming. Whether we go down a little bit more, whether we do a couple loops and twirls on the chart, who knows? But I know it. History repeats itself. It always happens in one way or another, and the charts are very unpredictable in the sense that from point A to B is different every cycle. Like it's very hard to know how we get from point A to point B. But historically, we have a bull run, we have a bear market, we have a market, right? It's like the cycles are almost always the same in terms of time and percent moves. It's just how we get there. That chop in between is like very unpredictable. So
Yeah, I think that a lot of people are misinterpreting being early for it being over.
yeah,
Just because something didn't happen in the timeline that you thought it was going to happen, that does not mean that is not happening. And I think people had this mini euphoria, they got excited, and you're just early. You're just early to the party. But it's going to start. You're going to get in. The nightclub's going to open the doors. They're going to set up the the red velvet ropes, and you want to make sure you're on the list. You want to make sure you get in. You want to make sure that you get your gains for this. But when that cycle happens, it's going to be vicious. The movement up, that flow of liquidity is going to happen, And remember, like Easy's saying, we're in a bull market, but the bull run hasn't started yet. Exactly. It's not a bear market anymore. Definitely not a bear market. I mean, these numbers are astronomical compared to when we were at the bottom and Bitcoin was hitting 16,000. But we're not in a bull market. We're just in a better market. And if you can use this dip as a buying opportunity, that's huge. Sis says, when will liquidity return to memes on ETH?
Yeah.
Liquidity has to cascade down. First, you have to have Bitcoin truly hit its all-time high. And I think the all-time high that we're talking about, and tell me if you disagree, is one that comes with these violent move upwards. Not like that 1% move. We want to see that short squeeze, that 70, 72. Then we want to see it fly to 80, 85, 100. That's the type of movement we're going to see in the matter of days or weeks. That's the type of all-time high that starts triggering this cascade effect. As soon as that dominance goes up to the 60, a little under 60%, somewhere around there, then it moves over to Ethereum like it always does. And then after it goes into Ethereum, that's when the engines for meme coins really get started, especially the ones that are on Ethereum. I think other chains won't see, they'll see a push, but it's not going to be as violent because we're going to have this magnification of Ethereum going up so much, even before the alts. And that's going to push Ethereum meme coins just to a crazy level. It's funny how people sort of like moved off of Ethereum a little bit. I think it still has the highest potential because we don't have Solana ETFs, we don't have Tron ETFs, we don't have any of those. We have all of this coming to Ethereum. And when that gets triggered, it's going to send Ethereum meme coins to levels that we've never seen before. That would be my answer. So is it a couple of days? No. I don't know exactly the timeline. I don't think anybody knows exactly the timeline that it's going to happen, but it's soon because it's all set up for that move upwards, that short squeeze to happen. The charts look great for Bitcoin. The accumulation's happening. Price action is pretty steady. I mean, we're still at a very high level compared historically what Bitcoin was valued at. But when that move happens, it's never fully expected. And the only thing that you can do is sort of just understand that you're getting paid to wait. And it sucks because you don't get paid daily. You don't get paid on Friday. You don't get a paycheck at any time. But once it happens, you are going to be in a better position by having your position set in now with a higher percentage of tokens than trying to chase that pump and really being more of the receiving end of exit liquidity than being able to take advantage of the money that's coming in.
Yeah, and totally agree with all that. And it's funny, I made a video about this a long time ago, but this is the chart I showed in that video to answer Siz's question about when could we speculate, altcoins, meme coin season, when do we get that inflow of volume, right? Well, we can look to previous cycles, right, to see where the patterns, right? Because what all technical analysis is, all trading is you're looking for patterns from price history, right? And then making decisions based on that. So if we look at the last two altcoin seasons, right, these are the only altcoin seasons that really exist.
By the way, I have to interrupt you real quickly.
Mhm.
Quick message from our sponsor, Trading by Storm. He's a YouTube channel. He is sponsoring this space, this live stream 100%. We kindly ask that you go check out his channel, drop it a like, drop it a question, and also watch the video that he made in a lot more depth on the whole rotation of cycles because it's really a great one to see.
Totally.
Sorry to
Thank you.
interrupt you for our
You're
sponsor. I
good.
know you're not a
A
fan,
good
but
interruption.
you
I'll
know,
I'll let
we
that I'll
get
let that interruption slide. Yeah.
we
No, yeah. Thank you though. Yeah, totally. I have very detailed videos on all this stuff on my YouTube for sure. So if you guys want to check that out, definitely do that. To give you a very quick like synopsis of what my theory is on when altcoin season happens. Like I said earlier, it's historically always happened when we break previous cycle all-time high. So what we can see on this chart, right? These white lines are cycle all-time highs, right? So this was the 2013 Bitcoin all-time high, right? Then we went into a bear market. We pumped up. This is the bull market, right? From August 2015 to December 2017, right? This was the bull market period. This purple zone right here is when the altcoin season occurred, right? So if we just zoom in on this first altcoin season, what happens here, right? when Bitcoin breaks its previous cycle all-time high, Bitcoin enters something that's called like price discovery mode, right? That's when it gets super parabolic. You'll see Bitcoin talked about on the news, on every retail traders don't get interested until Bitcoin's at all-time highs, right? That's just historically how it always happens. Like you can talk, like I was talking to my physical therapist a couple months ago when I broke my wrist, and Bitcoin was like legitimately, I think this is when it was at like 70 something K. And I was talking to her about how like, oh yeah, I trade crypto, whatever. And she's like, oh yeah, isn't Bitcoin like down a ton? And I'm like, no, it's like, a couple $1,000s away from all time high. And most people, if you ask, you can do this experiment yourself. Go ask most retail traders who aren't like every day checking the charts. They'll have no idea Bitcoin's like right about all time highs, right? And so when it does break all time highs, it'll get this massive move up out of the channel. And that's when retail enters, right? That's when price discovery happens. And when retail enters, they're going to inflow into altcoins historically, right? Because they want to make those high percentage gains, whether it's XRP, Luna. This cycle, it's going to be meme coins, right? So next cycle, right, we see similar pattern play out. We get this all-time high. We enter a bear market, right? This is on logarithmic mode, so this bear market doesn't look as bad as it really was, if you guys remember this cycle. But we get a bear market, and then we get the bull push up, right? And when we break that all-time high from the previous cycle, it triggers altcoin season almost to the exact week, right? So this is the last 2021 altcoin season. It occurred right after that break of the all-time high, right? So now where are we positioned today? Well, we have the previous all-time high. We're trying to break through it. What you would suppose based on previous cycle data is when we do get this move up, right? We get this break to all-time highs. Bitcoin kind of gets parabolic. It enters price discovery mode. You expect, right? If we go back to the dominance chart, this was exactly what I was saying earlier. Once we get that Bitcoin breakout, then you expect Bitcoin dominance to die out. People start, taking that liquidity from their high cap Bitcoins and Ethereums, and they start trickling them down into altcoins. And that's when you get this move right here. So that's my overall macro thesis on altcoin season. So when will altcoin season come? In my opinion, it's when we get that confirmed breakout of the all-time high. When we get that quick move out to all-time highs, that euphoric move up, that's what's going to trigger meme coin season, in my opinion. So
Yeah, and it hasn't been triggered. We were seeing these moves upwards, from those $16,000 lows, and it felt really great. And then we tickled the all-time high, but we never had that really big breakout.
not at
And
all.
that's why people have this sort of like bearish sentiment in the market, and people are feeling down and exiting positions. You really just came early by thinking that it's going to happen at that moment. It was an unconfirmed breakout
Yep.
because it never broke out.
Yeah.
So
Well, you can see
that
it right here. Yeah. Definitely did not break out, right? This is not breakout movement from previous high. So
people thought, because it had moved those big green lines, from the beginning of the year, from those lows, people thought that breakout was happening, and then they faked themselves out. So if you're faking yourself out of the market, what's happening is you are hurting yourself. You have to remember this hasn't happened, but what has happened over here is this really nice consolidation at the high, almost at the high levels of the last crypto bull run. And it's going to be a violent move upwards, because not only is the breakout happening with a larger consolidation than we had the last bull run. If you look, there wasn't as much of a consolidation. It's also happening at the highest levels. And when you have that move that's going to happen is going to be violent. It's going to be fast, and it's going to price people out of this market quickly. So make sure you lock the bags in, buy the blood. The blood breakout is imminent. Word to Raygun. Yeah, shout out to our favorite breakdancer in the world, Raygun. Um, extremely talented. She is the Solana 4-hour rug pull of breakdancers. But just because it hasn't happened, you just have to look at the technical analysis correctly. And the technical analysis says that we're getting geared up for a huge short squeeze, brings about $10 billion in liquidity into the market. The short squeeze is going to instantly send crazy buys around the 70, $72,000 level on Bitcoin, shoot us up, and then that cascading effect into meme coins, starting with Ethereum and then other altcoins and probably on other chains as well. It's going to be violent, but I think the biggest magnification of this liquidity event and the ETFs is going to be on Ethereum meme coins, because no other place is connected to that directly besides Ethereum.
Yep.
Not even the L2s, maybe base chain, because base chain is technically Ethereum. It's really not different. But I still think that there's going to be a lot more volume and a lot more that happens on Ethereum because of the establishment of these memes, the culture, and just the traditional comfortable notion that Ethereum is where you find the long-term holders and the most liquidity and money.
Totally. Yeah. And Max Giga asks, do you think it's another fake pump this year and real run next year? Well, definitely hasn't been a fake pump, right? Because we're up massively on Bitcoin. If you're so like the question could be like, could we fall from this level, create new lows before a new pump next year? Absolutely. We absolutely could. In my opinion, right? From my macro thesis right now, I think there's too much liquidity right here. I'll pull up this liquidity heat map. I know I've used this the last couple times, but I think it's really important. Actually, we'll go to 6 months.
I
So,
love the maps. These are
oh, I
great.
love maps. You want to know why this is so great? Because it tells you exactly where retail is trading, where all retail stop losses are, right? So this is like basically that almost that whole range that we've been ranging in from the top in March, right? You can see very clearly, right? Up until this point, right now, all the liquidity is to the upside. It used to be all down here, right? These two lows right here were record liquidation runs, right? And that was because we had, like you said, we had so many people at the top before we broke out, right? When we were kind of making those wicks up to 74K, then we get back in the range. So many people anticipating that breakout in Bitcoin to all-time highs. So many retail traders opening up longs. Bitcoin's going to find that liquidity, right? It's going to stop people out and punish people for FOMO buying into Bitcoin at the top, right? And so what it did is we had two massive multi-billion-dollar liquidations to the downside. It hunted that liquidity from people trying to trade the breakout trade of Bitcoin, right? We've stopped out almost all the liquidity to the downside, right? And I'll zoom out here in a second so you can see an even bigger macro picture. But we've taken that liquidity to the downside, and now where's all of retail's liquidity? It's to the top at all-time highs, right? So I anticipate this liquidity to get swept, a massive short squeeze to come. I think the market is so primed for it. You have institutions the last 2 or 3 months who have doubled and tripled their holdings in Bitcoin, right? Buying up Ethereum ETFs, Bitcoin ETFs, spot holdings in Bitcoin. They've soaked up all of this liquidity, right? And again, that's why markets hunt liquidity, is because these big institutional buyers need massive amounts of liquidity to fill their positions. Like BlackRock's, let's say they're holding the $2 billion of Bitcoin. They can't just hit a buy order and buy $2 billion of Bitcoin off the spot market. They have to generate that liquidity from the retail market, right? So what happened is if I'm an institutional buyer and I'm like, damn, I want to buy a couple $1 billion of Bitcoin, I'm going to have to find areas of where retail is going to long and to create that sell wall and trap them. So then when they get stopped out to the downside, like we saw, it fills my buy orders to the upside, right? So that's what happened. And so now what I'm anticipating is this massive short squeeze to the upside, because that's where all the liquidity lies. And when I say liquidity, what this is retail traders stop losses or liquidity levels, right? So where they're going to be stopped out of their shorts and basically send the market in like a massive God candle to the upside. So I think it's very unlikely that we see a retracement below the levels that we've already touched, right? So like, I don't think we go below 50K. Is it possible? Absolutely. It absolutely is possible. And if it did happen, it wouldn't change my bias that we'll see more upside at some point. But obviously it does change some of my short-term macro perspectives. Like if we make a move below this level, I want to say, okay, hey, where are we going to find support to the downside now, right? Because it doesn't invalidate my bigger macro thesis, my bull cycle thesis, that we still have another 2 years at least of this cycle. So, but I do think in terms of probabilities, because that's all trading is you're judging probabilities and pairing that with risk management. I think probabilities is we see the breakout from this low. I think we're going to break out soon. I don't think we make another low. That's my perspective, but yeah, take that with a grain of salt, of course.
Well, it's sort of like, Bitcoin is acting like a moth It's looking for those bright areas of liquidity, and it's going to go towards them. And
Yeah.
when it hits those areas of liquidity, remember, it already scooped that liquidity from the longs, so it has that money to then push up higher. Now it's going to go liquidate those shorts to get the rest of that liquidity. When it hits the liquidity, or before it even hits liquidity, let's talk about the downwards movement. The downwards movement could happen if you break like, key support levels, but you're not going to have those crazy liquidation wicks because there's not a lot of money down there.
Yep.
There's no reason for them to go hunt it, and it's not going to have these violent moves downwards because you don't have liquidation events that are going to happen of any size. So now it should be saying, how do we consolidate and find those yellow lines? How do we find that liquidity? That's where it's going to be hunting. It's already wrecked the longs. It's taken that liquidity. Now it's going to get the shorts. And when you get those shorts, that's where the massive buys from the short squeeze is going to send it, like you said, to that God candle. So I think it's more of a bullish optimism I would have now for it, but it has to gear up to get there. It actually has to make it there in order for that to happen. It's not happening overnight. When is it going to happen exactly? We don't know. But the fake out, I don't think it's going to be as much of a fake out because we didn't have the shorts at those levels before. Now that we have the shorts there, if it passes it, it's going to just technically have to have an insane move upwards.
Yeah.
We didn't have that prior.
Yep. Well, yeah, and I just don't think we had liquidity for that, at least from an institutional perspective. We had tons of people trying to trade that breakout to the upside, but there was no people shorting the market there. Everyone was like so euphoric and trying to play that breakout. And so, as an institution, you're like, okay, we got retail longing, right? Retail wants to trade this breakout. Obvious point to set some shorts, defend that level, stop them out, get some liquidations to the downside, which again brings liquidity for them to fill their bags before that short squeeze up. And that's exactly what happened. When I saw those tweets about JP Morgan, BlackRock, all these big institutions, actually throughout this 2-3 month period when everyone's scared shitless and selling all their bags, they've been accumulating. It clicked for me. I'm like, oh, I know exactly what happened, right? They're hunting that liquidity, filling their bags, getting retail scared to sell into their hands. And then, now it's so primed. If you're an institution now have bought billions of dollars in this range, you want price to go up, obviously. And there's so much liquidity to the upside from retail. It's the most obvious play that retail wants to push price to the upside, squeeze out, and immediately get this, big candle and push up to the upside just by stopping out retail traders that shorted. So
Yeah, it looks like the next move is going to be that violent move. The question is, how long do we range underneath that ceiling of liquidity? How long does that happen? I don't know exactly, but that's the hard part right now is ranging below. Maybe there'll be a little dip, but those violent liquidity wicks down, I don't think are going to happen anymore.
yeah, and to be fair, this is like one of the longest consolidation periods we've ever had on
It's
Bitcoin.
crazy, right? Like it's
But I
not
mean,
even like no other one has had that before the bull run at this level.
well, so actually, I mean, this bull run we've had consolidation that lasted about the same. So like this consolidation period right here, which happened this bull run, I can't see the dates because it's okay. So from March of last year to October of last year, 2023, we had a 217-day chop. So this was like a clear range, right? And this one is only 175, 168, 170, somewhere in that range. So we could still consolidate longer, right? I mean, you never know. We could consolidate.
Let me clarify what I was saying. Look at the line over here. I'm putting my mouse on it, but you can't see that. If you look at where we were at when it broke that all-time high, that 2021, the white line, where it broke through, the one underneath. Yeah, if
Oh,
you go
this one?
down, no, lower, the 2021 all season all-time high line.
Oh, this one.
Yeah, so the consolidation that happened right below it was tiny.
Yeah.
We've had a consolidation at a lower level that happened for a while, but I don't think we've ever seen a consolidation that's happened this long at an all-time high
No, definitely not. Definitely
or
not.
near an all-time high. Like nowhere. We've had violent moves upwards, but we've never had a consolidation basically at an all-time high. I'm going to say anywhere above 60,000 or 65,000, this
Yeah.
area. So it's sort of an unprecedented, painful consolidation that's
Oh, it
happening. But
is.
then you, what?
I said definitely is. Definitely is.
Yeah, we, there's a lot of blood in the streets. But what that means is it's setting up a floor, a support, a springboard to just launch into this violent short squeeze of liquidity, but also have a stronger platform than it's ever had before. We've never had that type of springboard. When you have a consolidation event that happens in the middle of an upwards movement, those stairs give you the strongest movement upwards, and we've never had it at this level.
I totally agree. Yeah, I totally agree. Like that's what I'm saying. That the market's never been primed for as big of a breakout of an all-time high ever. And so, yes, like this consolidation, it's very painful. And part of it is like this consolidation. I mean, I can't even remember it too much. Like it's because at this point, right? Like if you were to erase this part, where's that tool? So if we were to erase this,
Oh, you
right?
could erase the last 3 months of trading for me, please. I'm
Yeah.
more than I'm
I
more
wish
than
we could go back
happy.
this time for real. But if we're at this point in the chart, right, you're
We
thinking,
thought that was the move.
yeah, well, yeah. I mean, a lot of people at this point don't know that this is. Let me take this off logarithmic. It's a little easier to see. But if we're here, right, back in August of 2023, you don't know that this is the start of the bull run, right? I mean, some people probably predicted it. I actually was. I actually thought Bitcoin was going to get closer to 10K, right? So this, a lot of people said, oh, it's a retracement and we're going to continue lower, right? Whatever. You don't know that this is the start of the bull run. So this chop, right? This 220-day chop, whatever it was, it's not as painful, right? Like it's people still very speculative. Like the market isn't euphoric at all, right? Like very few people have called the bottom up until this point. And so that's so much different than this consolidation up here where it just feels like we're so many people you're just getting blue balled from that all-time high, right? But like you said, the more painful it is, right, the more shorts we accumulate in this area, and the more you know people that short the market get scared, the faster we're going to move to the upside. And so we have been tested so much the last 2-3 months. Like if you're holding your bags through this whole time, your high conviction bags, congrats to you because I've done the same. I've not sold a single dollar of my high conviction plays. It's painful, right? I've seen my meme coin wealth, which up here in March, like I was sitting very pretty, like life changing money up here in March. And I'm, still in a great spot. But to see that retrace 70, 75, almost 80% in a 2-3 month period, it's so hard, right? But that's welcome to being a meme coin trader, right? That's part of trading. It's the market psychology is so tough and it's testing you in this area so badly, right? But again, if you just zoom out in that macro perspective, ignore the noise of this chop, whether it's the World War III events or the money box, whatever it is, right? If you have that conviction and you've had a plan from down here, right, from last year that I know we're going to have a 4-year cycle, right? I know we're going to make the breakout, regardless of the fundamental news, regardless of the noise around it and people selling their bags around me. You hold your bags, right? And you anticipate this move up. And I think you'll be very greatly rewarded for that. So, anyways, yeah, totally right. This has been a season of pain the last 2 or 3 months for anybody in this market. It's been tough. If you're winning the last 2 or 3 months, kudos to you. You're one of the very few.
Or
But
you're
for
lying. Or you're
or
lying.
you're lying, or you're lying, exactly. So kudos to you, but I think the people who have held and who've really had the balls to hold their conviction plays through this 2-3 month chop and through the fear and through the FUD, they will be rewarded very soon, in my opinion. So time will tell, but I am like I don't want to get too early, knock on wood, but I'm feeling that tingly feeling in my plums, dude. I'm ready for it. I think it's coming. So we'll see.
I think I'm in the opposite situation where I'm feeling nothing's ever going to happen, nothing's ever going to come. But that's also the most bullish sentiment you could have because when it all feels like the end, that's
Yeah.
usually the beginning of something great. But the other bull runs, we just had this like tiny stop where they said, hey, you can get off the plane for 5 minutes to pee. And now all of a sudden we're stuck in Minneapolis for 3 weeks on a layover because the plane's getting repaired and nobody expected it, and it's painful.
You wanna know why I think it's different this cycle? Because this is the first cycle we've had real big institutions at play. And so welcome to, because I've traded every market. I've traded in the Forex, I've traded in the S&P. The reason I like crypto the most is because it's historically always had way less institutional buyers that you're trading against. Market manipulation is crazy when you have big institutional buyers in, right? It's the more institutional money, the more big money you have in a market, the more the market's like out to get you, quote unquote, if you're retail, right? And so I think part of the reason this is happening is because, hey, this is institutional manipulation right here. Institutions stepped in and they said all-time highs. I don't think so, right? We're going to take all your liquidity. We're going to challenge retail because retail is weak hands. They can't sustain these 20% drawdowns, right? They get scared. They sell their bags. They way over leverage their long positions and they get stopped out. And institutions know that and they benefit from that. So I think that's probably why we've seen so much pain compared to last markets, is because we have now institutional money within our cryptocurrency markets.
And that sideways movement that you're seeing over here and talking about institutions, that's accumulation. That's them taking as much of it off the table for as low of a price as they possibly can because they don't want to buy high. They don't want to sell low. So they're just taking and taking and taking and pulling it out while the retail bleeds. You have to understand the only way to beat them is to buy the blood in the streets, literally and figuratively.
Yep.
And that side, but that accumulation is taking supply off. That's bringing in buyers. That's bringing in volume. That's going to happen in the near future, and that's going to be very, very bullish for everything. I want to wrap up with one last thing. I'm going to share my screen over here. Actually, just got a message that Trading by Storm did not send enough money to sponsor the whole show. So the rest of the show is going to be sponsored by the Bloodboy token and Feastables. Feastables from Mr. Beast. We're hoping that if we preempt him, he will sponsor us, but it has not been officially declared, nor does he know that we exist, I think. But Mr. Beast, we will eat Feastables on stream if asked.
Yeah, pay me for the right price. I definitely will eat Feastables on stream.
I can eat chocolate for not that much of a price, honestly. That one I could do pretty easily. Let's see if a screen share happens over here. Hang on 1 second. You see it?
Yep.
This is that article that I was looking for over here. The article is from a little while ago, but it still is macro. It still is correct with everything. So you have a total of 142,000 Bitcoin from MtGox. Today it's valued at about 9 billion. Then it was 8.85 billion. We're not even going to talk about Bitcoin Cash because it's so small. No, there was two options that the creditors could have. They could get 90% right away or wait for the end of civil litigation. Everybody said, let's take 90% or 75% opted for it. So that reduced that payment out to 95,000 Bitcoin. And then you also have claims by MtGox investment funds. So it was a little bit less. So you're going to look at about a potential market impact of 75,000 Bitcoins total. But with the investment funds, it comes out to, and the 90% distribution from people taking it early, it comes out to about 65,000 Bitcoin, which is just about 65,000 more Bitcoin than I have in my Bitcoin wallet. A little public disclosure over here. It's not going to happen all at once, but let's take a look at the volume and how it affected. So daily exchange inflows have averaged 32,000 Bitcoin over the past year. The peak was in January when 150,000 came in when they just launched. So if we look at 65 to 75,000 Bitcoin that could hit the market, we can look at a few different scenarios of how it's going to happen. So we're looking at about 8.74 billion of daily traded volume. That's what it was about a month ago. I don't know if it was today or the last week. You're looking at about the worst case over the course of the months that it's going to be done, worst case scenario of about $2.8 billion that's going to be sold at once. So if $3 billion of Bitcoin gets sold a day, over here, conservative volume, the daily price, if they sell 7,500 Bitcoin a day, the people, you're looking at a price impact of 7.8% in that day and 0.2% over 30 days. Reasonable, 25% of people sell, you're looking at a 12.4% price impact, but less than a 0.5% price impact over a month, because it gets, it's not like it stays and every day they're selling. And even if there's an aggressive selling of 45,000 Bitcoin, the price impact would only be 19%, or less than a 1% impact over the course of 30 days. So the impact of selling all this Mt. Gox Bitcoin is way overstated. The volume that we have with the ETFs has already shown that we can handle inflow and outflows of billions of dollars. It's not something that I would really worry about. And again, I think from, this is the financial side, just the numbers side. We also have to remember the Mt. Gox people are early Bitcoin holders. And I would imagine that a large amount of those are Bitcoin maxis. There are people who want to hold, and there are also people who probably still hold Bitcoin. There are probably people who are literally maybe watching the stream right now. These are people who know the crypto markets. And minutes before the party starts, I don't see this mass liquidation event of Bitcoin happening. I see a much higher percentage of them holding. I see the ones that sell are going to be eaten up because we can have that handled by the now giant pockets of these institutions who literally laugh at these numbers. And it's really going to come out to be a nothing burger besides a little bit of retail FUD, which allows them to have more people put shorts in the market, more liquidity for the institutions to gobble up. So don't listen to it. Don't worry so much about it. And just remember, it's us against the institutions if we really want to win. And if the institutions are taking our money, don't short the market right now. Don't be fudding it. Don't go down, because when it goes up, all they're going to do is take more of that liquidity off of the market. And they're going to use this Mt. Gox event to fake you out, when in reality, it's a nothing burger and it's something that they could eat in a couple of bites without much of an effect on the overall market. So the title of the show was Mt. Gox Doom or Fud Fumes. I think that we declare Mt. Gox Fud Fumes. We take away the Mount, we take away the Gox, and it's just a hoax from institutions to set up more shorts for them to scoop up that liquidity and wreck you. So instead, just be patient, hold your bags, and when that cycle starts, you'll be very happy. Don't be that yellow line that they gobble. What do you think about that?
Totally agree. Yeah, totally agree with all that. I mean, and again, like they say aggressive selling, they're going to sell 45,000 Bitcoin in a single day. They need buyers to sell to. And that's so unlikely. It's so out of the realm of possibilities, in my opinion, that an exchange dumps $45,000 onto the retail market. I think it physically can't happen, but it's just so unlikely. Like that's not how institutions sell. So unless there was like some insane
This would be
event.
Mt. Gox. This would be like the Mt. Gox private sellers just getting their Bitcoin and immediately running to their Coinbase account and saying, let's get rid of it.
Well, and that's the thing, though. I don't even know if Coinbase would have enough liquidity to instantly sell 45,000 Bitcoin. I'm not sure. That's a good question, actually. I wonder how much liquidity Coinbase owns. How much
They would have to get from like Grayscale and other places. Like it would be a crazy event, but I just think that the Mt. Gox holders are not that stupid that they wouldn't just dump all their Bitcoin
Well,
5 minutes before the bull run.
my question though is it holders of Mt. Gox, or is it Mt. Gox exchange transferring to another exchange to sell? You know what I'm saying? I think that's what it is. I think it's Mt. Gox exchange moving their liquidity to sell to like other exchanges or off market, however you want to say it. I don't necessarily. It's not like I don't necessarily
Gox
think.
creditors.
It could be maybe I'm thinking about that wrong, but
No, I mean like it is the MtGox creditors, but who are the MtGox creditors? There's Fortress Investment. Let's see how many creditors. Yeah, I don't have a list of creditors. It'll be interesting. We can take a look at that next stream in more detail if you'd like. But I don't see any of these, even the institutions. I don't see them going and dumping all their Bitcoin right before. I mean,
yeah,
I see this as even a stronger accumulation. It's still going to be held. And whatever does get sold, it's not going to be at the volume that has any worry. And even if it was the doomsday scenario of MtGox full clipping, MtGox creditors full clipping stuff, the market can absorb it. We have, I don't want to say our savior, but we have some giants in here now with BlackRock and other people, like other institutions like that.
yeah, yeah. And hold on, wait. So MtGox owns a total of 79,000 Bitcoin total. That's like the
Yeah.
entire exchange holds in terms of liquidity. Coinbase, where is Coinbase? So yeah, I mean, if they were wanting to, let's say for whatever reason, like MtGox completely liquidated itself, which wouldn't happen, but let's say it did. I mean, it could, but it would have to be spread out between literally every single exchange that existed, and be, I don't know, it's so unlikely. Like it's such an unlikely thing to happen. I highly doubt it. So, anyways, yeah, just think it's more fear to add to the FUD roller coaster we've been on the last 2-3 months. So, but historically, if you can hold through some pain, if you can have some conviction, some long-term conviction in great coins, you will be rewarded. So
I completely agree. I think this is a good time to say goodbye, end the stream here. Appreciate everybody showing up. We appreciate our sponsors, Trading by Storm and Bloodboy. No affiliation to either. Um, and thank you everybody for tuning in. We'll try to do a couple more of these this week. We'll find some interesting, fun topics, and we'll be here through the good, the bad, and bringing you all the exciting news and current events that are happening. Storm, thank you again, and have a good night, everybody. Again, as always, we'll awkwardly end the stream 4 seconds after we say we will and stare at the camera for a few seconds so you can enjoy our beautiful faces.
thanks, guys.